Patricia "Pat" Myers is the leader of the traveling carnival known as Nuka World on Tour, stationed in Appalachia. Patricia is the daughter of two former employees for the Nuka-Cola Corporation, and she has a younger brother named Pete. During the Great War, the two siblings were children at the time and were hiding with Gunther Jenkins. While the children stayed inside, Gunther went to explore and became a ghoul due to the radiation. 6 years after the Great War, in 2083, the siblings lost their parents who were trying to protect them from a raider attack on the traveling carnival. Pat experienced deep grief and started a journal to try to process her feelings, but she felt angry about the idea of having to care for her younger brother and take over the carnival. In time, Patricia did run the carnival, and although she struggles with seeing the purpose of it all sometimes, she does it for her parents' memory. She also misses not being able to eat funnel cake anymore. By 2094, Pete began to suffer from depression due to his parents' deaths and having to live in a post-apocalyptic world. He was prescribed chems by Del Walsh, such as Daddy-O. Del claimed Pete would be a threat to others and himself otherwise. Pat was annoyed at Del giving her brother chems, feeling it worsened his symptoms, and wrote him a note to stop. She once found her brother in a ditch because of it and worried about him dying. Although her traveling carnival has been attacked by raiders, with her staff disappearing or dying, she eventually settled in the ash heap by October 2104. An elderly woman visited the carnival and gave Pat a crate of bottles. Pat found the strange visitor unusual, but believed her claims that the liquid was a vaccine to help them against the scorched plague. Betty is a local of Appalachia and was born at the Belching Betty sometime after the Great War, making her no older than 27 years old. Her father used to call her Missy because it seemed her existence only drew misfortune. For example, her mother died while giving birth to her. Just before this, Betty's parents were on their way to the AVR Medical Center, but time was not on her mother's side, causing her mother's death before they could make it to the hospital. Betty's father could not forgive his daughter for his partner's death. Betty also felt guilt despite having no choice for the matter, and would have chosen to die to save her mother's life in order to make her father happier. In 2100, Betty's father died as well. He was eating supper moments before his passing, only having 5 mouthfuls. She told him she loved him and hoped he would be with her mother again. In early 2101, Betty began exploring the world and scavenged to survive. During this time, she became heavily irradiated, suffering from hair loss and skin rashes. She thought she was dying, although other people called her a ghoul. She began to wonder who would love her in spite of her new appearance, feeling disheartened by the matter. She always dreamed of seeing the world and was excited when the Nuka World Tour arrived in Appalachia in 2104. Patricia Myers allowed her to join as an employee, and now Betty is determined to be a hard worker to pay back the kindness as she considers them to be her new family. She is happy she is not the only ghoul around, with Gunther Jenkins also at the fairground. Gunther explained to her what being a ghoul meant, making her feel less self-conscious about her appearance, and he also found her a wig. She also enjoys listening to Pete Myers' stories, and there are implications she has a crush on him. She has been trying to encourage Pete to visit the Tunnel of Love with her, although he does not know why she cannot go herself. Pete is the son of 2 former employees for the Nuka-Cola Corporation, and he has an older sister named Patricia. During the Great War, the 2 siblings were children at the time and were hiding with Gunther Jenkins. While the children stayed inside, Gunther went to explore and became a ghoul due to the radiation. 6 years after the Great War, in 2083, the siblings lost their parents who were trying to protect them from a raider attack on the traveling carnival. Pat then took over the duty of caring for her young brother. By 2091, Pete was an adult and helped with setting up the attractions, but was still never quite over the fact that his parents had died. Gunther had taught him some basic mechanic skills, although Pete learned a lot on his own, and has been told he has inherited natural talent from his father. By 2094, Pete began to suffer from depression due to his parents' deaths and having to live in a post-apocalyptic world. He was prescribed chems by Del Walsh, such as Daddy-O. Del claimed Pete would be a threat to others and himself otherwise. Pat was annoyed at Del giving her brother chems, feeling it worsened his symptoms, and wrote him a note to stop. She once found her brother in a ditch because of it, and worried about him dying. Pat motivated her brother to try to find a different outlet instead, with Pete finding reading poetry enjoyable. When the ghoul Betty Hill joined the carnival, she developed a crush on Pete, and he would tell her stories. However, Pete doubts she has a crush, and he has recently begun questioning his own sexuality, unsure if he is attracted to women. Lately, the ultracite titan has been lurking around the carnival, and although Pete claims he saw it, no one really believes him about the creature existing, including his own sister. Del Walsh is a medic and vendor who was employed by the Nuka Corporation before the Great War. After the bombs dropped, he joined the traveling carnival of Nuka World on tour and served as a meds and chems merchant in Appalachia. Walsh worked as the senior paramedic at Nuka World outside of Boston before the war. Dissatisfied with the sanitary conditions of the office area in the Nuka Town, USA clinic, he sent an email to his co-workers to remind them to throw away their unfinished food and to clean up afterward. When the senior physician, Dr. J. McDonald, left for his 2-week European vacation, Walsh occasionally filled in for the acting senior physician, Dr. Michaels, during some shifts to ensure Michaels got time off. Having treated and reported hundreds of injuries and 2 fatalities caused by recent ride malfunctions, Walsh bypassed his unreceptive superiors on July 14, 2077, to voice his concern with the safety at Nuka World, directly to John Caleb Bradburton. Bradburton, who secretly underwent Project Leap X in his personal vault on April 2, 2077, would have been impossible to reach without contacting his proxy, Peyton Huxley. It is unknown whether Bradburton or Huxley ever received the holotape, as the report is found on the reception desk in the clinic. By July 18, 2077, Walsh was offered a role in Nuka World on tour. He was excited because it would mean he would be in charge of health and safety, and he could tell his parents he earned a high-ranking position. By August, he became its physician. Through the Great War's devastation, Walsh survived and kept traveling with the carnival for over the next 2 decades. Walsh began to give Pete Myers chems, such as Daddy-O, believing that doing so was keeping Pete alive. Walsh also thought that Pete could not only be a threat to himself, but also to other people. The prescription of chems annoyed Pete's sister, Pat Myers, who would threaten Walsh over the issue to the degree that she wished Walsh was no longer part of the carnival. Gunther Jenkins is the host of the Wild West Town attraction. He grew up in an orphanage but was expelled from it in around 2047. It is hinted he got into a physical fight with another boy over someone named Tabitha. He lived in the Boston area. By 2056, he was hired by Nuka World due to his cowboy impressions. He looked forward to eventually seeing Texas. During the Great War in 2077, he was in a location waiting for all the rumbling to stop. He had Pat and Pete Myers with him, who were children at the time. Once the bombs stopped, he went outside to explore, which turned him into a ghoul due to the lingering radiation, which he would come to regret. He has been with the traveling carnival since the beginning. Despite the post-apocalyptic lifestyle, he still finds things to enjoy about living, though admits he is lucky because of that. Pat and Pete give him a reason to live, and he has viewed the siblings as if they were his own children. He has also taught Pete some basic repair skills.